are not necessarily accustomed to. So things such as tornadoes, historically, Oklahoma, that tornado alley, Oklahoma, Texas, that area. But as most recently in this area, we've experienced La Plata had a tornado. So that's one thing we need to be aware of. Snowstorms. We're all familiar with Snowmageddon, and I forget what they called the other one, but it was Snowmageddon-like, right? So we need to think about things because first responders, town staff, we are going to be engaged in clearing the roads and doing things of that nature. So when power goes out, you may be without assistance for sometimes an extended period of time. So you need to have a plan. So the phase one is preparing with friends, so I'm not gonna read each one, but I'm gonna highlight certain things. When it comes to communications during a storm or an emergency or anything like that, texting seems to work better than calling, right? So if you're not familiar with texting, you should get familiar. It's pretty straightforward. Have an emergency communication plan, right? Normally when a disaster happens, families are scattered all about. People are at work. Most of us in the county work out of the county. So where are we going to meet? If something affects Indian Head area, where are we going to go, right? Have that predetermined. Make sure that I was going to do some videos, but for sake of time, I'm not going to do the videos. But it basically talks about being prepared. Ready.gov has a lot of information. It's a FEMA-run website, and they do a really good job of giving you step-by-step things on being prepared, like preparing a go bag in the military. I don't know if you guys are familiar. A go bag is you always have this bag packed, right? It has medication and things of that nature, clothes, water, so you want to have those things prepared. Let's go to the next phase. So what can we do as a community to get prepared for this? We need to think about ourselves first, right? You got to take care of what your family's going to do, but what about your neighbors? What about the elderly neighbors or the neighbor who may need some assistance? What can you do for them? So we want to, as the chief gave us some really good news about getting the truck, we want to celebrate our first responders because these guys and ladies volunteer their time to fight fires and respond when we have emergency situations. So, and the officers who put their lives on the line to keep us safe. So they do a wonderful thing. And when there's an emergency, they're one of the first people we look to come help us. So we should think of establishing, and I am willing to head this up, and I'm looking for a show of hands to have an Indian Head Community Emergency Response Team. These are people who would augment the town staff if they so need help to do certain things in the event of an emergency. Things like security, because the sheriff, these guys are going to be very active in making sure that when lights go out on cross streets that they are doing those things and keeping those entities that are deemed emergency essential things like banks and all that. I'm not going to speak for the sheriff, but I would think those high value things would get some of the more, some more presence. All right, Annie, how do I go down? There we go. Excuse me one second. So the county has a person assigned, and they also have an operations center where they do emergency preparedness. That's their main entity where all information flows, and the point of contact is listed there to act as a conduit for all the information in the county. And I think the town should have something like that. I know last storm, Ryan, I think you and Karen headed up our center, but we probably should have some more citizens involved. The youth play an integral part in preparing for emergencies. So we can look at having a youth preparedness council. I think that would be helpful to get them involved because a lot of times they will see things that us adults we don't see, and they can be instrumental in preparing for a disaster. All right, so what can an individual do, right? So you need to understand what your responsibilities are. If you have any medications, CVS probably will not be open. Indian Head Pharmacy will probably not be open. So it's always good to have a 60-day supply of medications. That's always a good thing. If you have those documents that are very important, birth certificate and things like that, you might want to store them, if at a minimum, in a Ziploc bag so water can't get in there. You would be amazed the number of people who experienced, there was a fire up north of us in an apartment building, and many of those people, their important documents were destroyed. So luckily there were some nonprofit agencies that were there to try to help them, and the county said that they would try to expedite some of these things, but when people lose birth certificates, driver's licenses, it's hard to identify them, so it makes it more difficult to restore those documents. So at a minimum, for instance, I have a fireproof, waterproof safe where I put my things in, but if you don't have one of those, use a Ziploc bag. That will help for water, won't help for fire. FEMA has a wonderful app that'll give you detailed information on disasters that are affected, and it's region specific, so that's one really good thing about it. And it gives you alerts, and it gives you a bunch of safety tips. So what can we do to get started? We need to raise awareness. So I want everyone, before you leave here tonight, take a few of these flyers with you. FEMA's website has very detailed information. They have wonderful videos that connect to YouTube, and you can watch all about it if you don't like reading it. But when the power goes, you don't need electricity for these, right? Another good thing, in your cell phone, we normally click on someone's number, right? We don't memorize numbers. If you don't do anything more, take time this weekend, next couple of weeks, and write down these numbers in we used to call it a little black book, but in a book, so you have a physical copy of numbers. All right. I think that's it for disaster preparedness. Are there any questions before I go into the cyber stuff? No questions? All right, awesome. Okay. All right, so holiday season, Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year. In cyber community, we call those scam season. So everyone is trying to get your money. So you need to be ever vigilant when it comes to checking your bank accounts for strange activity, even if it's a small amount. You need to be diligent when doing that. A lot of banks nowadays will text you or call you when they see activity that is not consistent with your behavior. So they do a lot of behavioral analysis on your habits and things like that. I don't know if you've ever been to the store and they deny you and you say, I know I have money, right? Well, something in that pattern, maybe the time of day, you never go to Walmart at 10 in the morning on a Tuesday, but you had to go that day and you charged $200. Well, that is out of the norm, so they will flag your account. And it's a great thing that I welcome when they call me or text me, right? Because criminals, if they get $5 from 500 people, I mean, that's all they need to do. So they go after small incremental amounts. They don't necessarily go after the large amounts. All right. So several years back, the White House started a program called Free Credit Report. So you can get an annual credit report free of charge, and it does not impact your credit score if you go to annualcreditreport.com. So there are sites that look close to this, so go to Google, type it in there to make sure you're using the right link, because there are sites that are closely worded to that are fraudulent sites. So go to Google, annualcreditreport.com, and you can sign up to get free credit reports. So one thing you can do, you can also freeze your credit report. If you really want to stop identity theft, you freeze your credit report. You have to send a letter to the credit reporting agencies saying, I would like to have my credit report frozen. The only downside is if you want to get a loan, you say, I'm going to get a car in the next 6 months, you need to send them another letter to unfreeze your credit report. But it prevents someone from stealing your identity because they can't charge anything. Well, they can't buy anything. They can still, steal your identity. All right, so reputation services we have a lot of business owners here. The internet is filled with good comments about people and bad comments, right? So if you're a business owner, or even if you're a person, there are reputation services that can refute or remove unjustified negative content about people. So that's something good to know, because it really impacts businesses. Yelp reviews, there have been a lot of lawsuits against individuals who put unjustified Yelp reviews. All right, so email spam. A lot of times you'll receive an email from a site. Sometimes you'll receive it from yourself. That's called spoofing, where there are sites you can go on and you can make up an email address, and you'll receive an email from yourself saying that you signed up for something, and what they want you to do is they want you to click on it. Don't even click the email, right? Just delete it, right? There's no need to say unsubscribe me or anything like that, because if you say unsubscribe, that validates that is an actual email address and then someone actively checks it. So don't click unsubscribe, just delete it. So this was hopefully a cheerful presentation. It wasn't meant to, but it just gives you some things to think about, because we have to be prepared. So are there any questions for me? No questions? It's wonderful. Make sure you take a few of these flyers. I ordered quite a few, so yes, sir.
Is that something that can be put on Indian Head's website?
It will be put on Indian Head's website. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And then we'll put the links to ready.gov. I have to get some, I plan to distribute these to each resident's home, so if you have any dogs, you may not get one. But I will do my best once I get the appropriate things to put them in. But I think this is very helpful. So it's not to put fear in you, it's to make you prepared, and so we can all have fun in the town of Indian Head. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Curtis, for the briefing. Moving on to presentations, recognitions, resolutions, ordinances, and petitions. We have no presentations or recognitions. We do, however, have a resolution on the table.
Resolution number 10-01-16, introduced by Mayor and Council. Date introduced October 3rd, 2016. Date adopted October 3rd, 2016. Date effective October 3rd, 2016. A resolution regarding approval of a joint land use study with Naval Support Facility NSF Indian Head. Whereas the Indian Head Joint Land Use Study, JLUSE, was initiated in 2013 to identify measures to ensure that future land use and development near Naval Support Facility NSF Indian Head, formerly known as Naval Surface Warfare Center Indian Head, is compatible with the mission of the facility. And whereas the purpose of a JLUSE is to encourage cooperative land use planning between military installations and the surrounding communities so that future civilian growth and development are compatible with the training, testing, and/or operational missions of the installation, and to seek ways to reduce operational impacts on adjacent lands. And whereas this study is considered vital to protecting the mission of NSF Indian Head and thus maintaining the positive economic impact the facility has on the town of Indian Head and Charles County. And whereas the town of Indian Head participated in the Indian Head JLUSE as authorized by Resolution 10-01-13, adopted by the Council of the Town of Indian Head on October 7th, 2013. And whereas public participation for the JLUSE included 2 public forums on January 28th, 2015 and on March 25th, 2015, an online survey and interviews with key stakeholders. And whereas the draft JLUSE report was approved by the JLUSE Policy Committee on August 11th, 2015. And whereas the Charles County Planning Commission recommended and the Charles County Commissioners adopted the JLUSE on September 27, 2016. And whereas the Town Planning Commission and the Council of the Town of Indian Head have considered the JLUSE and its implications for the town of Indian Head, and the Planning Commission has recommended that the Town Council adopt the J-Luce. And whereas once the final report is adopted by each participating jurisdiction, an implementation coordinating committee will be established, including a representative from the town of Indian Head, to track the progress of implementation of the study. And whereas the Council of the Town of Indian Head believes that adoption and implementation of the J-Luce is in the best interest of the town, its residents, its businesses, and its stakeholders. Now therefore be it resolved by the Indian Head Town Council that the document consisting of text, maps, and graphics entitled Indian Head Joint Land Use Study, J-Luce, is hereby adopted and shall be effective immediately upon this third day of October 2016.
Mr. Mayor, I move we accept the resolution as read.
I second that.
All right, before we do vote, Mike, I believe that's why most of you are here. Do we have any comments or about the study?
Good evening. My name is Brian Clausen. I'm the co-chair of the Military Alliance Council. I'd like to stand and just share some concerns I have regarding the J-Luce study. Right now, as it stands, we are in the middle of the Urban Land Institute study. We are in the middle of the airport land use plan. We are also considering a Mallows Bay designation. We are also just now coming to grips with our sustainable community designation. And also in the last 3 months, the county has just adopted a 5-year strategic plan. My concern is that the J-Luce that you all are looking at approving this evening has not been fully vetted since August 11th of 2015. A lot of changes have happened since. One of those is the adoption of the comprehensive plan, which recommendations for the planning committee will be to rezone the entire western side of the county. Now, it could very well be that the J-Luce is adopted as submitted, but I believe there has been a whole lot that has taken place within the last 6 months, and we have a whole lot of plans right now that we don't know if we're supporting each one with. Adoption of this J-Luce right now without fully vetting what has happened in the last 6 months, I don't believe will do a service to us. I recommend that we table this for 60 days so that it can be studied to ensure that it's compatible with all of the other studies we currently have going today.
So do you think 60 days would be sufficient? It sounds like a lot of moving parts.
There are a lot of moving parts. One thing that we have been very good at here in Indian Head over the last 20 years is conducting studies. We're fantastic at it. And what we don't do is we don't, excuse me for 1 second. I'm very proud of what Indian Head is now doing. But one thing I also want to show you is I forgot to mention the fact that Indian Head has also just approved an economic revitalization plan with 16 priorities. So over the past 20 years, with all of the recommendations that have been made, with the current plan we now have in place, with the Urban Land Institute study we are now engaged in, I believe it's prudent that we look at our 2 primary assets we have here in Indian Head. One of those is the military installation we have right down at the end of 210. And the second thing we focus on, like a laser beam, is the autonomy of our town council. We have so many studies going on right now. I believe we would need to see more of a vision from the town council and find out if these plans are all supporting what we as the residents, you all were elected by the residents of Indian Head. Are these plans and are these studies compatible with your vision? And with all of the studies we have going on, with all of the studies we have had over the years, and with the fact that we have a very new and fresh town council, are we just approving another study that supports where we want to go as a community? Or are we just recommending approval of another study because it's another study?
So with all those things being said, I think 60 days is not enough time,
Okay?
right? I think we table this until an undetermined time, if that's possible, where we get all the necessary studies and we take a thorough review of all those studies. We don't initiate any new studies until we get these studies vetted. And then we come back with a recommendation that's prudent. So I agree with your recommendation.
We support that. And we'd like to be a part of that as well. The community here wants to be a part of what the vision of our town council is. Thank you.
Any other comments regarding the resolution? Yes.
I'm Vince Hungerford. I'm not a resident, but I'm a significant landholder here in town. I echo what Brian says. The comprehensive plan was just adopted. It was proposed by the Planning Commission. The county commissioners made 26 or 28 amendments, which I think is a significant change. We have the economic development plan that was given to the county by Garner. When he looked at that, he said he didn't really take a good look at the comprehensive plan. But the comprehensive plan puts a lot of land in Western Charles in conservative, watershed conservative. That requires a zoning change. And it has an impact on Western Charles. And I think it's prudent that we stand back, like you said, for a period of time and take a look and make sure everything gels and it's what we want it to be. Thank you.
So I have a question. I think we have some JLU's people. Is there an impact to delay that your organization would incur?
The most likely is we have a grant, it's being totally funded by a grant from the Department of Defense,
Okay.
Economic Adjustment, and we've had several extensions of that grant already.
Okay.
But at the same time, the project manager over there is pretty flexible, so I would definitely need to talk to him about anything that comes up here, but at the same time, I don't want to hinder your process.
Right.
So
Right.
just keep that in mind.
So is this a recurring grant? Is this something we could aid you in applying for again or something? Because it's going to take us a period of time. It seems like this is not going to be something.
Grant, we've had several extensions.
Okay.
Several cost extensions. We have a contractor here too, Resource Management Concepts, and they've been assisting us with extensions as well, so we help them as well, but
Okay.
I don't want to
Right, but there are no fines or anything like that that we could, if you could evaluate, would we incur any fines or penalties for your time and effort?
I don't think you would incur any fines. I would just talk to
Okay.
the project manager. I think he will most likely be understanding.
Okay.
And I can communicate that back to the town.
Okay, because, yeah, everything that has been said makes absolute sense. I wish I would have known some of these concerns, so I could have been prepared, but that's very prudent. So if you could let us know if there are any things that we can do to assist you.
One question. One question that I have is the adoption of this particular motion. Are there any other parties in, let's say, the county, is it impacted by our timeline for adoption of this motion? Are they waiting for us to adopt this first and they adopt on that end, or is that independent?
No, the county commissioners have, last week, they have already adopted it, so you wouldn't be holding up
Anybody else?
any others.
The only concern that I would have, like Amy said, is the funding. Because it has been ongoing for a while, and it's like, as long as the funding is available, because it's happening.
Well, it's 100% federal funding, and some in-kind contributions from the county from my staff time.
And what is that funding? How much is that?
The amount is $185,000.
Okay. Okay. All right. So if your funding runs out, you can't get additional funding in the future, we may not get the benefit of your services? Is that how it would go?
Additional funding could be applied for if
Okay.
needed. I'm not sure we would need to. The extensions we've done so far have been
Okay.
no cost.
All right. All right.
But there's probably ways that could be worked out.
Okay, wonderful.
One last question I have is, so J. Lewis, the study that was just completed, right? Is this just going to be an ongoing, like version 2.0, version 3.0 every other year, depending upon the funding, or is this what you presented is the final for us?
This is, well, the GIF land use study is a one-time document, but it's also, it's considered a living document. Once it's adopted, implementation committee is normally formed where all the similar parties work together to make sure that the recommendations are implemented. So, things don't, if things change or come up after the study's adopted that need to be addressed, they can be done through that implementation committee.
So you could, in essence, we could adopt it, and as those things present themselves, we could make the modifications. But I think it's prudent to go ahead and do the evaluation. My concern was $185,000 is money we don't have, but if we can be gracious enough to get your flexibility, we'd appreciate it.
So the recommendation is to table the motion for now.
Second.
All right. All in favor of tabling the motion? How long?
We need to get those studies in here. I don't know that we can set a date. If that's possible, if we need to give a date and then reevaluate.
What studies is it that you all do not
So,
currently have?
so Brian listed a few.
I mean, we have the studies. It's just a matter of looking them over. And,
Yeah, we
yeah,
don't
the
have all
ULI
the
study,
studies.
correct.
We don't have everything.
Right.
So when we get all that, then digesting it all, so it's going to take a period of time. If you think we can do it in 60 days, then say 60 days. It does not sound like we can do it all in 60 days to the satisfaction of the residents. So I think we need to take time. If we don't have to give a date, if we can revisit it in 60 days, that's fine, but I don't think we're going to be ready.
We'd be prepared we would recommend having what comes through to evaluate, and if 60 days is a good time to represent back to you, that would be sufficient for us.
Okay. Works for me.
have to give a date. So
I don't think.
we can table
Yeah.
it for another
Let's
time.
just table it.
Yes.
Table until further notice.
So moved. Second.
Second.
All right. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. It has been tabled. So moving on to ordinances, we have none. Petitions, none. Unfinished business, none. New business, none. Moving on to miscellaneous. Announcement of upcoming meetings. Community Activities Committee will have no meeting in October. The Indian Head Business Association will have no meeting in October. The Village Green Flea Market will continue through October 29th. There will be no flea market on October 8th. Washington Gas Community Meeting happened on Saturday. The 11th Annual Breast Cancer Awareness Fitness Walk will happen Saturday, October 8th, 8:30 a.m., 1 to 1 p.m. in the Village Green Park and Pavilion. Parks and Rec Committee will meet Wednesday, October 12th, 6:30 p.m., Senior Center back room. Environmental Sustainability Committee will meet Wednesday, October 12th, 7:30 p.m., Senior Center back room. Indian Head Volunteer Fire Department and Rescue Squad Annual Open House will be Saturday, October 15th. Yep. Okay. At 11 to 3 p.m. Planning Commission will be Wednesday, October 19th, 7 p.m. Town Council Work Session will be Wednesday, October 26th, 3:30 p.m. The Mayor's Youth Advisory Team will meet Thursday, October 27th, 7 p.m. At our Senior Center. And P.S. We recently had an election for the Mayor's Youth Advisory Team in which Kritika Oli, who is here as one of our team captains, as well as Alex Thompson,